You're listening to the Trade Show Insights Podcast, Season 16, Episode 7. I'm your host and exhibit marketing strategist, Marlis Arnold, bringing you tools to improve your exhibit results. On today's episode, brought to you by the Exhibit Marketers Cafe, we've got a rebroadcast of our virtual lunch with a communications expert sharing tips for how to rebuild work friendships post-lockdown. Bill Rollins is Stocker Professor Emeritus of Interpersonal Communication at Ohio University. His published writings and classes examine the unique challenges of communicating in friendships across life and how they accomplish well-being for individuals and communities. His two books on friendship, The Compass of Friendship and Friendship Matters, have received multiple awards and been referenced in numerous articles and textbooks addressing communication in personal and work relationships. Bill is frequently interviewed for publications throughout the world concerning friendship. And as I discovered last week on our conversation, he also plays in a band, and his drum set was made just a few miles from my house. So talk about a small world. Bill, welcome to Virtual Lunch.
Hi, Marlis. Glad to be here.
Thanks. Well, let's start out and talk just a little bit about what are some of the overall factors or concepts of friendship. What are we talking about here?
You know, I think that's a good place to start in thinking about friendship together. And I've studied friendship since 1978. It's been my life work, and I'm fascinated by it because it's such a unique relationship. Let me try to suggest some ways that friendship is unique. Okay. First of all, what's kind of interesting about friendship is it can be a freestanding relationship in and of itself. Okay. So each of you can probably think of someone who your primary relationship with that person is that they are your friend. Maybe you made friends in high school or secondary school or college, or you made friends working, in the events industry together, but you basically think of this person as a friend. But another thing about friendship is it can be a dimension of other relationships. So it can become a dimension of a relationship with a brother or a sister. Some of you may be thinking of some of your brothers, some of your sisters, primarily as a brother or a sister. But then there may be one that you've actually become friends with. And that highlights, I think, one of the most significant aspects of friendship as an ongoing relationship. And that is that it's voluntary. It's based on choice. You can't make people be friends, and you can't prevent people from being friends. Okay. Now, contrast that with a variety of types of relationships that we live in our lives. Okay. I already mentioned family. You're always someone's brother or sister, mother or father, but that doesn't mean that you become friends with them. In fact, a lot of us, maybe even during the pandemic, have realized that, we've become friends with people in our family that maybe we weren't prior to the pandemic. Okay. So, but anyway, kin is based on blood. Now, when you look at marriage is you choose your spouse and your partner, but then it's typically sanctioned legally. It becomes a legal bond. It becomes a religiously sanctioned bond. You can't just drift in and out of a marriage. You have to, in some religions, have it annulled and have a divorce for the marriage to be over. Okay. Co-workers, many times relationships are governed by contracts, partnerships. That keeps people in a co-working relationship. When you look at friendship, It's always a matter of choice. It's always a matter of mutual choice, choosing each other. So
Mhm.
that's an initial comment I would make, Marlis.
Well, and it's interesting. I actually came across, and I'm sure you're probably aware of it. Olivet Nazarene University did a study on work friendships. I think, let's see, back in 2018. And they said that 82% of the people that they surveyed had at least one work friend.
Okay.
And the average was 5 work friends. And let's see, and 62% of them said that they spent time together outside of work. So, and I know I've worked on my own and been a solopreneur, but I know when I did have a job in a community of other people, we did a lot of times we would go out after work and do things together. So I think that's one thing that's really people have really been missing this past year. And actually, so here's that link for that research. And I think that was one thing. In fact, that was the first article that I came across where I discovered your work and your thoughts was in the article in the Atlantic about how the pandemic has really changed the format of friendships. So talk a little bit more about that, of how, our friends are changing now after this past year.
Okay, that's a very important question. What's what's important about what has happened during the pandemic, in my opinion, is that it kind of has made very, very clear certain things that we've always known about friendship, but maybe we haven't acknowledged. Okay. And we're kind of compelled to acknowledge it now. And it goes like this: the friendships we have throughout life are very, very closely related to how your life is organized. So, how is your life organized? So, Marlis, you mentioned this notion of we make friends with people that we work with. Well, that's because many times at certain points in our life is organized around our work. It's something we care about. It's something we're dedicated to. And we meet people there that share those dedications and goals, and so we become friends with them. Okay. And now, but here's the deal. I mean, if the way your life is organized changes, many times so does the people that you're able to be friends with change,
Mm-hmm.
because your patterns of interaction are radically changed. I mean, a term that I like to use in thinking about this, especially during the pandemic, but it was true before the pandemic, is what we might call functional proximity, where,
Hmm.
I mean, you have someone that lives across the street from you or on the same floor in an apartment building, and you hardly ever see them. And then you might have someone that you work with that actually lives in a different city, okay? But your paths crossed every day because of how your lives are organized.
Right.
And the pandemic has changed that.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, that's where, like you said, a lot of work friendships come from because you're spending, most of your day with these people, working with them day in and day out. And so now, not having been in that proximity, so the friendships are kind of shifting, because I know, like for Alan and I, you mentioned neighborhood. Since Alan and I walk every day, and we see different neighbors out and about walking their dogs or working in their yards or whatever, we've gotten to know a lot of our neighbors so much better in the last year because
Yes.
we interact with them a lot more often. So it has changed. So what are some of the things I know you have? I don't know exactly what you call them, the 3 factors or
Oh, sure.
the 3 elements of friendship. So can you go over that for us, please?
I will, but on the way there, I want to pick up on something that you said just now that I think is really important to think about, Marlis, and then I will talk about what I call 3 expectations of close friendships.
Sure.
But here's the thing that I think we all want to recognize about our friendships. Friendships are always about something. They're
Mm,
about something. So one of the reasons why we make friends with people we work with is because we really are all about event planning, and this is something that we've spent a lot of time learning about, and so we find other people that share that. And it's interesting, Marlis, because when I was thinking, since we've talked about this broadcast today, I was thinking, well, what is something that people, in the events industry care about? And that is, I was thinking, how are we going to reinvent this after the pandemic? And in line with friendship, can we do this together? And I was so impressed listening to your opening remarks that you're already tuned in about that. This is something that maybe during the pandemic we haven't been able to engage in the activities that we in some ways took for granted. They patterned our lives and suddenly were completely disrupted. And now we're concerned about, will these opportunities ever come back? And one way we can actually both rekindle friendships and create possibilities is to talk together, imagine, meet, and literally work together on that. So I was really, really impressed with that. But I also should mention to you that, if, we have close friendships and we have friendships we make in work. And sometimes the friendships that we've made at work are pretty well just about work. And if there's nothing else and the work goes away, they go away. And people understand that during these times. I hope they understand it. Should I mention the three? Let me hear from you, and then I'll mention the three.
Yeah. Well, I just want to talking about friendships and how friendships have changed. Silvana has said hi to everybody from Sao Paulo, Brazil. So that's a perfect example of, we've been able to make friends in completely new locations and friends that we wouldn't have connected with maybe otherwise during this time as well. So it hasn't just eliminated friendships. It's also, like, for example, I know my LinkedIn connections grew tremendously last year because I made a lot of new connections at a lot of the online conferences and things that I did. Let's see. Silvana has another comment. Having more friends now and international ones too. So nice. Marlis is one great friend now for me. Oh, thanks, Silvana. I consider you a friend now too. So, and I look forward to someday having the opportunity to meet in person. But, even if that doesn't happen, I still feel a bond with, all these people that I've been meeting. So it really has been a whole eye opener, I think, for us, that it's not so much, you don't necessarily have to be in the same room with someone to consider them a friend. But like you said, there's got to be that common bond there somehow. So let's talk about, and Marco, who's from Italy. So again, another international. So says that's definitely true what Silvana was saying. So, the connections that we've all been able to build. But let's talk about those three elements again, or that we didn't get to before.
Yeah, sure. What I've noticed in my research, and Silvana and Marco, I'm very interested in your international and intercultural perspectives, and that's wonderful that you've been able to connect. Chuck's in St. Louis and Matt's in Chicago. You folks have been able to connect, because it's something that you all share a dedication and an interest in, and that's a real gift of friendship. I think it's wonderful, because friendship can transcend differences for people focusing on focusing on common issues, common what Aristotle once called a common good. Something that we all can benefit from. The three expectations that I've noticed across the life course. Once people have kind of a mature understanding of what friendship is, I have seen across the life course, adolescence, young adulthood, later adulthood, three expectations of a close friend. The first one is somebody you can talk to. All right. And, someone who listens, takes your concerns seriously. You can talk with them. All right. And that's very important. The second one is someone you can depend on. People use the phrase, this person is there for me. All right. When I know they're there for me. And then the final one is joy. And friendship is a source of enjoyment. It's a source of pleasure. And I notice the spirit of this, Exhibit Marketers Cafe. You're taking pleasure in each other's company too. That's important as well. So somebody you can talk to, someone you can depend on, and someone who you enjoy. Those are the three expectations. And here's what I would say, Marlis. They persist across the life course, but the conditions under which people experience them can change drastically, like we know very well during this pandemic.
True. And Silvana says she agrees, and thanks to all my virtual friends, she said. And that is true.
Awesome.
I mean, like what you said, Bill, I think that virtual lunch has become like a support network or almost therapy kind of for those of us in the industry, because we've been able to have that. It's been, that way that we could all come together and stay connected through the industry, and then talking about all the different issues that relate to all of us. But kind of on the flip side, let's see, and Marco has a comment here. Agree on what you say, Bill. I have many international colleagues who've become friends too.
Wow. Good for you. Thank you.
And I would say that a lot of my really good friends I've met through the events and meetings industry. I mean, that's really or else just because I'm an entrepreneur, through entrepreneur groups that I'm in online as well. So, I think that having that common interest is a very important thing. So kind of taking that and flipping it a little bit, obviously in our industry, we've lost a lot of people and they've gone somewhere else. They maybe changed companies, but a lot of them have just completely left the industry. Or like, in Alan's case, I mean, he took what he thought was a 3-day weekend and ended up getting a call and saying, don't come back on Monday. And so he didn't have a chance to say goodbye to the people that he was working with. So how do what can we do to try to either rebuild those friendships if we can reconnect with them, or it's like a grieving process, really. How do we go through that and go forward? I know that's a big question.
That's a big question. It's a very important question. I guess I'm going to say a couple things. One thing I'm going to say is that this pandemic has disrupted everybody's lives. Some people more than others, and I'm so deeply sorry about industries that are based on people getting together. I mean, you mentioned I was in a band. I have musicians I care about all over the world that are. I mean, I know people that are internationally well-known musicians. They made their livelihood by touring, and it is not happening. So this and the events industry. I mean, golly day, the opportunity to go to a really well-managed trade show and to really have hands-on encounter with new products and people who understand what's special about them. But what I want to say then is there's a sense in which I want people to realize that I think just about all of us, say, speaking right now together on this broadcast and elsewhere, understand the extent of this disruption. I mean, we all understand it. And part of friendship, closer friendship, is a kind of an assumption of benevolence, which means, I mean, I've got close friends and I mean, I study friendship. It's my life work. And I'm thinking of people I have not contacted in 15 months. Okay. However, what I do know is I've written myself a note. It's been at the top of my list. It's dropped back down. It's made it back up. And hopefully this week I'll do it. I'm going to contact that guy. I'm going to make the effort. And the moment you make that effort, I think you realize that other people are really happy you made the effort. And in some respects, they wish they made the effort. It's this, because friendship, I mean, there's one thing that I talk about, Marlis, friendship. I think when people become close friends, they gift each other two freedoms: a freedom to depend, and that's that thing, I can depend on you. It's an expectation of friendship, a freedom to depend on me. Marlis, we become close friends, and we say, look, if you need me, I'm here for you. All right. But the other freedom is to be independent. Like if you and I work together in Kansas City, and I got a really good opportunity, in Milan or something, you would say, look, I know you would love to work in Italy. You've got to do what's best for you. So that's the freedom to be independent. But if you need me, I'll be here for you. So what happens then during this pandemic is friends are being forced to exercise that freedom to be independent. It's almost a compulsory independence. But we also know that we can, if we call on each other, there's a very good possibility that we're still there for each other. And all it takes is reaching out. So the first thing I would say is reach out. It takes effort. You have to make the effort. Okay. And when you do that, assume that the other person's going to be glad that you did. Because think about yourself, how pleased you would be if someone reached out to you to say, hey, Marlis, how you doing? You know, you've made yourself more available, Marlis, on this forum, but that's some initial thoughts. I hope they're helpful.
Well, and that's true. I think that, like you said, so often we think, well, you know, I don't want to bother this person or whatever. And you reach out and then you find out that maybe they've been thinking about you too, and they just hadn't taken time to reach out. And so they're so thankful that you made that effort. So, and it really, you know, it can be, like you said, long periods of time can go by, but you can reconnect with this person and it just feels like you just kind of pick up where you left off. And
absolutely, that's it. You know, some people say I hadn't talked to this person in 2 years, and it felt like I just picked up the phone. I'd set down the phone and picked it back up again.
Yeah,
friendship and I think is special in that way.
I was going to say, I think that would be the definition of a true friend, when you've got that bond and that connection that way, where you can just kind of pick up where you left off.
I think that freedom lives at the heart of friendship. I think friends encourage each other and realize, well, the other thing is, you know, that I wanted to mention is, when I wrote The Compass of Friendship, one of the things that I learned in writing that book is that it's an ethical responsibility to continue to learn about your friends. Okay. So say we're not close friends, but we worked together. And now we realize, darn, you know, she's in a really tough part of the country, or her industry's been especially hard hit by this pandemic. Okay. How's that affecting her? I need to learn about that. And I want to, and then your close friends, you know, it's an ethical requirement to continue to learn about them. So what are they going through? Let's reach out and find out.
Well, and I think Chuck has, which, by the way, Chuck is also in a band. But I think Chuck.
Go Chuck.
I think Chuck has a great comment.
Is that a Taylor? Are you playing a Taylor in that picture?
Besides the vaccine, nothing gets you through COVID better than friends. Chuck, that is our quote of the day. I think that's true. I mean, you know, like I said, this doing virtual lunch this past, well, now 13 months, it's really been, I feel like, a great way for us to stay in touch and to feel connected to each other. And Silvana says she absolutely agrees 100%. Reach out. You know, I think it is so important. And, you know, that's why I wanted to bring Bill to everyone today, because I feel like this is a great time to really think about how are we going to move forward with our friends, with our new friends in the industry that we're going to make once we all start getting back together in person, and the new friends maybe that we've made over the past year. So, Bill, thank you again.
I was wondering, Marlis, could I just mention two last things?
Sure.
Because I really, friendship always involves a risk. So think about these friendships that you made while you were able to pursue, you know, your event planning and your event promotion. Some of these people you worked with, and you didn't make the choice to become friends, and other people you did. You went, well, there's something about this person. And so you took the risk and said, hey, after we broke down the exhibit, you want to go to dinner? I know a good restaurant. You took the risk because you sensed that you might could become friends. That's the exact same risk I'm asking you to take again right now and say, darn, I'm going to contact them. You know,
that's a really good way of looking at it. Yeah.
And the other thing is, don't put too much pressure on yourself, because One thing I've learned about friends during the pandemic is nobody wants to talk about the pandemic. We're all going through it. Let's talk about whatever comes up. We'll get to important things. Small talk leads to big talk. So don't put a lot of pressure on yourself. You find out there's still a lot there to build on.
That's some great perspective. So, Bill, thank you again. I really appreciate you coming and sharing your lifetime worth of expertise on this subject. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time, everybody. You can find all the links mentioned during our interview in this episode's show notes at tradeshowinsights.com. And if you'd like to join us for an upcoming virtual lunch, you'll find info on that at exhibitmarketerscafe.com/lunch. If you enjoyed today's episode and would like more, you can subscribe to the podcast and automatically receive future episodes on your chosen device. Simply search for Trade Show Insights in Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, or virtually anywhere else that podcasts are found, then click the subscribe button. Trade Show Insights is protected by the Creative Commons copyright license. You may feel free to share this recording with colleagues or embed it on your own blog as long as it's shared in its entirety and is not used for commercial purposes. To learn more, please see the link in the sidebar of the show notes at tradeshowinsights.com. Well, that's it for this episode of Trade Show Insights. Be sure to check out our show notes and archives at tradeshowinsights.com. You can also connect with me using the social media links or the contact page on the site. I'm Marlis Arnold. Thanks for listening, and be sure to join us next time for more tools to improve your exhibit results.